My wife, for her 8th lover, had me crippled and sterilized, then orchestrated a car crash that killed my father and brother. I gathered evidence and reported her to the police. After she went bankrupt and was abandoned by everyone, she committed suicide. Her lover was sentenced to life imprisonment for killing my brother. It was only afterward I learned, however, that the true cause of events went far beyond that. Returning after 2 years abroad, I found my home inexplicably filled with 8 young, handsome men. Victoria's expression was normal. "They're just business acquaintances, forced upon me, just for show. Since you're back, it's a good time for them to leave." I personally saw each of them out. The last one, a man named Leo, deliberately shattered my mother's cherished portrait as he left. I slapped him then and there, and sent him back to the Onyx Lounge. That night, Victoria worked in the study all night. The next day, she was unusually gentle with me. But just a few days later, my father died instantly in a car accident, and my brother fell down the stairs, becoming a vegetable. Dazed, I stumbled onto the rooftop, only to hear her talking to someone downstairs. "Ms. Victoria, Leo has been settled in a villa on the outskirts of town to recover. Your husband's family, they've all been taken care of. Ms. Victoria, if Mr. Robert finds out about this, he might break down." The subordinate hesitated. "And what if he does?" she scoffed. "Where could he possibly run?" I trembled all over, slowly making my way down, steadying myself against the wall. It turned out that all the calamities my family suffered were merely because I had touched her cherished pet. I pulled out my phone and dialed a long dormant number. "Hello, I need to see that person." I stood by Liam's hospital bed, gazing at his peaceful sleeping face, my throat constricted as if by something lodged there. Numbly, I turned and unconsciously walked back to the rooftop. Suddenly, a familiar voice drifted up from downstairs. "Were Leo's supplements delivered?" "Yes, Ms. Victoria," the assistant replied respectfully. "Mr. Leo said he's been having nightmares and wants to see you." "HM." She paused. "Has the rehabilitation center been arranged?" "The most expensive recovery package has been booked for $1.28 million. And the Ocean View Villa and the Lamborghini you requested have already been transferred to Mr. Leo's name." Victoria's voice suddenly softened. "He's frail, so take good care of him. Don't let him suffer any hardship. After all, he's the father of my first child." My fingers clenched abruptly. The assistant hesitated. "What about Mr. Robert?" "Robert." Victoria's tone abruptly turned cold. "He dared to send Leo to a place like the Onyx Lounge. He should have expected the consequences." My breath caught. Victoria let out a cold laugh. "The Roberts family, they all deserve to die." "But," the assistant began, then stopped. "Mr. Richard died in a car accident, and Liam fell and became a vegetable. If Mr. Robert knows it was all you, he might break down." "And what if he knows?" she sneered. "Who else can he trust now, besides me?" A gust of cold wind swept over me, making me shiver uncontrollably. So, my father's car accident, my brother's accident, they were all orchestrated by her. All because of that man, Leo. How ironic. That day, Leo himself had helplessly said, "I grew up in a club." I had only sent him back to what he called home. The woman who slept beside me every night had destroyed my entire family for the sake of a club host. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart feeling as if a piece had been brutally torn out. "One more thing," Victoria suddenly lowered her voice. "Find a way to make Robert permanently lose his fertility. I want the tainted bloodline of the Roberts family to completely vanish from Eastwood City's elite circles." My blood instantly froze. For years, I had repeatedly brought up wanting a child, but Victoria always had 1,000 reasons to put it off. Afraid of pain, afraid of postpartum depression, afraid her own body couldn't handle it. She always said, "Robert, we have all the time in the world." Finally, it grew quiet downstairs. I slowly made my way down, steadying myself against the wall, my legs so weak I could barely stand. "Robert." Just as I reached the main door, Victoria's voice suddenly rang out behind me. I flinched violently, almost falling. She grabbed my shoulder. "Why are you trembling so much?" I bit my lip. Maybe I caught a draft. "It's a bit cold." When her fingers touched my shoulder, my entire body stiffened. Back at the villa, I pulled the covers over my head and curled up in bed. My father's blood-soaked image and my brother's unconscious face haunted my vision. The most terrifying thing was that she not only wanted to destroy my family, but also to cut off the Roberts family line. A terrifying suspicion surfaced. Had the vitamins she had been giving me all these years actually been? I grabbed my car keys, not even bothering to put on shoes, and rushed to the garage. I had to get to a hospital for a checkup immediately. I needed the truth now. Just as I burst out the front door, blinding headlights bore straight towards me. I froze. A car accelerating and rushing straight at me. Bang. The moment excruciating pain engulfed me. I faintly saw Victoria standing at the second-floor window. When I next woke, she was holding my hand, a mournful expression on her face. Robert, you were hit by a car. Your vas deferens was severely damaged, and they had to perform a vasectomy. I stared numbly at her reddened eyes, a wave of nausea churning in my stomach. The heart monitor suddenly shrieked an ear-splitting alarm, and I passed out again. I had a very long dream. In the dream, I was back at a college dance, Victoria walking towards me under the spotlight, her eyes brimming with starlight. She was pure and passionate then, waiting all night outside the boys' dorm just to bring me breakfast, secretly working for 3 months just to buy me limited edition sneakers. When my father found out about our relationship, he vehemently opposed it. She's a wild girl from the projects. What kind of good life can you have marrying her? I knelt on the cold floor of the study. Dad, she's different. She gets scholarships every year. She's 100 times better than those spoiled heiresses. My father finally nodded, his eyes red. On the day we got our marriage certificate, Victoria's hands trembled as she held it. Robert, I'll make you the happiest man alive. But after we married, she slowly changed. Sometimes tender and loving, sometimes unpredictable. I felt like I was walking on eggshells, never knowing if the next moment would bring affection or cold silence. When a teaching opportunity abroad came up, I practically fled. Why isn't he waking up? Victoria's voice drifted in and out. I tried hard to open my eyes, but it was as if I was trapped in the dream. Her voice sounded so anxious, as if she were still the woman who deeply loved me back then. A tear slipped uncontrollably from the corner of my eye, and someone gently wiped it away. Ms. Victoria. Why go to such lengths? He's your husband, after all. Victoria's voice instantly turned cold. This is what the Roberts family owes me. When Richard forcibly evicted our village, my parents refused to move and were beaten to death. I was 12, hiding in the closet, listening to my parents' screams. All these years, the misery of living under someone else's roof, who will repay me for that? But Mr. Robert won't be able to. That's for the best. Her voice held a chilling coldness. I will never let the tainted bloodline of the Roberts family continue. I will make the Roberts family perish without descendants. A dull ache throbbed in my chest, and I clenched my fists tightly under the covers. Finally, I laboriously opened my heavy eyelids. Victoria immediately came to the bedside, her face etched with concern. Robert, are you feeling better? Seeing I didn't speak, she sat on the edge of the bed and gently took my hand. Don't be sad. It doesn't matter if we don't have children, I'll always be with you. I rested my face on her shoulder, and where she couldn't see, I managed a smile uglier than a grimace. After a month in the hospital, I was finally discharged. Strangely, Victoria didn't come to pick me up, she only sent the driver to take me back to the villa. Pushing open the familiar door, the home that once echoed with laughter was now steeped in silence. My only reason for staying was to find evidence of my father and brother's murders. A sound came from the doorway. Someone pushed the door open. A tall and handsome man walked in, his shirt collar still bearing fresh lipstick stains. Victoria's expression stiffened when she saw me, then she explained, Robert, last week, when I was attacked by a competitor, he shielded me from a knife and needs to rest. She paused, her eyes darting. He's not well, I can't just leave him out there. I fought back the urge to vomit and calmly nodded. I see. Victoria visibly relaxed, then turned to instruct the servants, take good care of Mr. Leo. The following days were deceptively calm. Until one evening at dinner, Leo insisted on pouring me wine. I pushed his hand away impatiently. Don't touch me. He withdrew his hand, a chilling smirk flickering in his eyes. Suddenly, he clutched his abdomen, bending over in pain. Wine, the doctor said my wound shouldn't come into contact with alcohol. Leo pointed at me, his voice trembling. It was you want my wound to get worse. I didn't do anything, I said coldly. Victoria's eyes instantly froze. She grabbed Leo and helped him up. I'll take you to the hospital. Late that night, they returned. Leo's face was pale, and Victoria's voice was icy cold. Robert, you went too far. My heart twinged with a sharp pain. Leo spoke weakly. Mr. Robert, I know you're upset about your vasectomy, but you can't play around with people's lives. I scoffed silently. Victoria suddenly gripped my wrist. Apologize. I didn't do anything. I struggled. Leo opportunely started coughing violently. Victoria's rage intensified. Fine, since you refuse to admit your mistake. She signaled to the bodyguards, who dragged me into the courtyard. The bodyguards forced me to the ground, and a bowl of shrimp was brought before me. Since you won't apologize, Victoria's voice held a cruel tenderness. Then taste this. Scalding shrimp meat was forced into my mouth. I choked, tears streaming down my face. My entire body immediately erupted in red welts, and my breathing became increasingly difficult. Apologize, she snapped, her eyes filled with disgust. I stubbornly turned my face away, gritting my teeth. The suffocating sensation grew stronger, and I finally collapsed to the ground, convulsing before losing consciousness. She knew better than anyone that I was severely allergic to seafood, and it could be fatal. I blacked out completely. When I opened my eyes again, Victoria was standing by the bedside, her expression complex. Robert, her voice held suppressed anger. Why won't you just humble yourself, and admit you were wrong? Leo opportunely appeared at the doorway, his eyes rimmed with red. Ms. Victoria, let it go. Mr. Robert looks down on a club host like me, he wants to get rid of me. I understand. As he spoke, his gaze subtly dropped to Ms. Victoria's abdomen. Suddenly, a young nurse rushed in frantically. Is Liam's family here? My heart plummeted. What happened? The nurse's face was grave. The patient's ventilator had been dislodged, and by the time we found him he was already impossible. I shot up from the hospital bed, only to collapse back onto the floor as my legs gave out. When I looked up, I met Leo's smirk of pure triumph. I struggled to my feet and lunged at Leo. Was it you? Oi! He suddenly staggered and cried out, what are you doing? Victoria kicked me. Robert. I fell to the ground, the physical pain nothing compared to the agony in my heart. In the morgue, I sobbed uncontrollably, cradling Liam's cold body, my trembling fingers tracing his eyebrows, and eyes so like my own. Liam. Wake up. Please, wake up. My tears had almost run dry. Victoria tried to pull me up, but I clung to Liam as if rooted to the spot. Let's get a divorce. I stared at her blankly. Her pupils abruptly constricted. What did you say? Since you have a new lover and a child. Let's divorce. I'll grant you your wish. Never, she exploded in rage. Can't you stand him? He shielded me from a knife. Tears slipped silently. I have no family left. Just let me go. Only you have family, she roared. Where were you when my parents died tragically? Leo's family is gone too. And you? You threw him back into the Onyx Lounge while he was injured. I watched her unraveling expression with a sneer. Leo opportunely started crying. Mr. Robert, if my family hadn't been poor, I wouldn't have worked at the Onyx Lounge. I begged you on my knees not to send me away. You knew how dangerous that place was, yet you sent me back. If Ms. Victoria hadn't arrived in time, I would have. Watching Victoria destroy my entire family for a club host, I burst into laughter. Mr. Robert is unstable, Victoria commanded coldly. Give him a sedative. A metallic taste welled up in my throat, and I quietly allowed the needle to pierce my skin. When I woke again, the room was empty. My phone lit up. Leo had just posted on social media 3 minutes ago. High-end restaurants, luxury boutiques, racetracks, every post deliberately tagged me. I scoffed and blocked him, then dialed a number I hadn't dialed in years. The hospital was eerily quiet late at night. Changing out of my hospital gown, I sat in the waiting Maybach. As the car pulled away, Victoria's car passed us by. Goodbye, Victoria. In the Harrison Manor study, incense smoke curled. An old man with white hair and beard sat in an antique mahogany armchair, an aura of quiet authority in his brows. He slowly raised his eyes, his gaze, sharp as a hawk's, scrutinized me. You're Richard's grandson. His voice was deep and resonant. I knelt, pressing my forehead to the ground in a solemn bow. Yes, Grandpa Harrison. I beg you, please bring me justice. My voice carried a choked sob. The old man stroked his silver beard, a flicker of inquiry in his eyes. I've heard a little about your affairs. I heard you married a poor girl. What? Regretting it now. Seeing my silence, he sighed softly. If it's just a squabble between a young couple, it's not proper for an old man like me to interfere. Today I stand up for you, tomorrow you'll sympathize with her again. No. I suddenly looked up. She killed my father and my brother. Please help me. The study became eerily quiet. The expressions of the few servants standing nearby shifted. Mr. Harrison's expression grew serious. Are you telling the truth? My tears fell uncontrollably. Absolutely true. Half a month ago, my father died in a car accident. But his driver had been with him for 30 years and had never had an accident. 18 days ago, my brother fell from upstairs, but he'd been an athlete since childhood, so agile. I gritted my teeth. These were no accidents. Mr. Thompson narrowed his eyes. Are you saying? I heard Olivia Sterling make the arrangements herself, I said, my voice hoarse. You scoundrel. Mr. Thompson slammed his hand on the table. This is outrageous. How could a family like the Millers be trampled underfoot, like this by her? I gave a bitter laugh. There's worse. She believes my father caused her parents' deaths, so she approached me for revenge. Grandpa Thompson, I knelt down deeply. Please help me investigate. What happened back then? If my dad truly caused it, I'll accept it. But if not... I looked up, wiping away my tears. I'll make her pay. Mr. Thompson nodded, a flicker of pity in his eyes. Kid, I know about this. You can stay at the Thompson estate for now. No sooner had he spoken than a slender figure slowly emerged from the shadows of the old study. I instinctively looked up and saw an elegant woman standing there. She wore a sharply tailored beige dress, its flowing waistline outlining a captivating curve in the light. As she drew closer, I could make out her features, snow-white skin, a delicate jawline, and a pair of captivating eyes that sparkled like stars. Grandpa, her voice was as clear and cool as jade. Sophia, Mr. Thompson introduced. This is the Miller boy. He'll be staying with us from now on, so please look after him. Sophia Thompson's gaze lingered on me briefly, her eyes as calm as a clear autumn pond. She nodded slightly. Follow me. She led me on a tour of the Thompson estate. As we passed a hallway, she suddenly stopped. It gets windy here at night. Remember to close the windows. My grandfather said your grandfather once saved his life. Her voice remained cool. So while you're here, feel free to come to me if you need anything. She pushed open a carved wooden door, revealing a tastefully decorated bedroom. The room carried a faint scent of antique wood, and a freshly picked white lily stood in a vase on the table. Get some rest, she said before turning and leaving. I sat on the edge of the bed, my fingers unconsciously tracing patterns on the duvet. Thinking of everything Olivia Sterling had done, the familiar ache returned to my heart. But at this moment, in this unfamiliar room, I felt a sense of security I hadn't experienced in a long time. I sat on a stone bench in the Thompson estate courtyard, idly scattering fish food into the pond. Colorful koi leapt for it, splashing water that dampened my clothes. Suddenly, a delicate scent of perfume wafted by. Sophia Thompson's slender figure stood in the morning light. She was wearing a gray suit dress today, which made her skin appear as white as snow. The matter you asked me to investigate has a result. Her voice was cool and pleasant. I stood up abruptly, scattering fish food everywhere. What did you find? She handed me a document. The development project in Pine Ridge, back then, was indeed spearheaded by my father. But the person actually in charge on site was my distant uncle. My fingers involuntarily tightened, and the paper rustled softly. Due to a demolition dispute, my uncle clashed with the villagers. Sophia Thompson's voice trembled slightly. 2 villagers died, and it took a significant sum of money to suppress the incident. My heart sank. Even though it wasn't my father's fault, Olivia Sterling's parents had indeed died because of the demolition. Days later, at the top floor of Olympus, city's most luxurious hotel, a corpulent man was surrounded by women, his greasy hands roaming over his companions. When the door was violently kicked open, the lecherous grin hadn't yet faded from his face. Sophia Thompson strode in with several bodyguards and slammed the man onto the table. I followed, seeing the man's face filled with terror. Who are you people? Do you know who you're messing with? He struggled and roared. I'm from the Miller family. I sneered. You're not fit to bear the Miller name. Sophia Thompson didn't waste words. She pulled out a gun and pressed it against his temple. The man instantly went limp and wet himself. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything, he wailed. Back then, Mr. Miller assigned the project to my boss. Those villagers wouldn't move, and we lost millions each day of delay. I was confused for a moment. Sophia Thompson put away the gun and gestured for the bodyguards to drag the man away. Save those words for the police. Otherwise, your wife and kids in Australia. The man suddenly knelt down deeply, pleading, Don't touch my son. I'll tell you everything. I turned away in disgust, unwilling to look at the man any longer. Even at a time like this, all he could think about was his son. He didn't mention his wife once. The police arrived quickly, and as they handcuffed him, he was still wailing, Don't touch my son. I confess to everything. Olivia Sterling pushed open the hospital room door, and found it eerily quiet. She hurried to the bed and found it empty. A signed divorce agreement lay on the nightstand. The bathroom door was wide open, also empty. Her heart suddenly raced. With trembling fingers, she pulled out her phone, and dialed the number she knew by heart, only to be met with a power off message. She then opened a messaging app, and saw that Ethan Miller's profile picture had gone black. She sent a message, Where did you go? The next second, a red exclamation mark appeared. Olivia Sterling's heart sank to rock bottom. In the monitoring room, 2 security guards were sweating nervously. Miss Sterling, the cameras in this room and the hallway were intentionally damaged a while ago and cannot be fully recovered. She mobilized everyone to search the entire city, but Ethan Miller had vanished as if into thin air. Returning to the house, Olivia Sterling stood in the center of the living room, suddenly finding the home terrifyingly unfamiliar. Their wedding photos were gone from the wall, and all his favorite small ornaments had vanished. Brandon Hayes called, whining about wanting a new car, and she irritably hung up on him. An unprecedented panic surged through her heart. She shook her head vigorously, trying to dispel the unsettling thoughts. No, I wasn't wrong, it was her father first. Her words caught in her throat mid-sentence. She clutched her chest, a sharp pain radiating from it. One day, the office door was suddenly pushed open. Miss Sterling. You need to see the news, her assistant exclaimed, pointing frantically at the TV. The TV was broadcasting a special report. Latest developments on the Pine Ridge demolition incident. Former project manager Kevin pleaded guilty today, admitting to using violent methods that led to the deaths of 2 villagers. Olivia Sterling abruptly stood up, then collapsed back into her chair. Her fingers trembled uncontrollably, her mind a complete blank. The hatred that had sustained her all these years suddenly lost its anchor. For years, she had relied on her burning hatred to keep herself going. She hated the Miller family, hated them for having ruined her family. She worked odd jobs, endured the cold shoulders and disdain of relatives, and worked hard to get into college. She met Ethan Miller on campus. To be precise, she deliberately approached him. He seemed so naive, so passionate. Seeing him knelt down deeply before her father, swearing he'd only marry her, she even considered giving up on revenge. But every time she remembered her parents, dying because of the Miller family, her overwhelming hatred kept her from succumbing to her feelings. It wasn't until Ethan Miller went abroad that she coincidentally met Brandon Hayes at the Velvet Lounge. Brandon Hayes said his parents were also from Pine Ridge, and had passed away a few years ago. Driven by circumstances, he worked at the club, serving clients. Listening to him recount similar experiences, and then a drunken mistake that night, everything changed. Bang! Olivia Sterling slammed her fist on the office desk. Glass shards cut her skin, and blood flowed freely, but she felt no pain. Have you found Mr. Miller? Her voice was hoarse. The assistant carefully said, yes, we found him. Mr. Miller is currently at the Thompson estate. Sophia Thompson found a superb cemetery, surrounded by mountains and water. I reinterred my parents' and brother's ashes here. Standing on the mountain, watching the clouds drift by and feeling the mountain breeze, the anguish coiling in my heart seemed to dissipate somewhat with the wind. Sophia Thompson stood quietly beside me, watching me light candles. I softly said, thank you. If it weren't for you, my parents might have carried this false accusation forever. No need to thank me, her voice was cool. Grandpa said your grandfather once saved his life, so this is only right. As we were talking, hurried footsteps suddenly approached. Ethan. Olivia Sterling stood not far away, her eyes red, her face etched with pain and remorse. She reached out to grab me, but Sophia Thompson blocked her path. Olivia Sterling's expression changed. Ethan, who is she? I looked at her coldly. Who she is none of your business. Olivia Sterling's face instantly turned pale. I've been looking for you, for so long. I'm sorry. Her voice was shaking beyond control. I didn't respond, just looked at her with icy eyes. Oh. So what? Am I supposed to be grateful? Thank you for causing the deaths of my father and brother. Her voice choked. All these years, I genuinely believed it was your father who killed my parents. So you'd rather believe your own delusions than seek confirmation from me? I sneered. So you took away my ability to have children, all for a man who loves the club scene. She shuddered. He said you forced him back to the Velvet Lounge. He said he was beaten black and blue there, he said. I curled my lip mockingly. Since when did you prefer to believe a man from the club over your own husband's explanation? I sent him back because he told me himself that it was his home. Olivia Sterling looked as if struck by lightning, her entire body trembling violently. When she realized he had ruined my ability to have children, her face instantly turned ashen. Forgive me. Please give me a chance to make amends. She fell to her knees, her voice shattered. Forgive. I looked at her calmly. Unless you jump off this cliff. Who would have thought a flicker of relief would cross her eyes, and she would leap off without hesitation. I stumbled back a step, steadied by Sophia Thompson. Did you feel pity? She asked softly. No, I shook my head. I just find her pathetic and ridiculous. Olivia Sterling broke both her legs and was confined to bed for 2 months. After recovering, she began coming to the Thompson estate day after day, bringing flowers and various expensive gifts. But each time, she was ruthlessly turned away by the Thompson estate's bodyguards. One day, I was at a luxury store, picking out jewelry. Brandon Hayes suddenly appeared before me, with an undisguised look of triumph on his face. "Well, if it isn't Mr. Miller. Heard you ran away from home and are living with another woman." He deliberately raised his voice. "All your Miller family members are dead, and you're about to go bankrupt, so where are you getting the money to buy such expensive things?" Several customers nearby, hearing this, immediately cast strange glances. "Isn't this gold digger being supported by the other woman?" Brandon Hayes feigned a laugh, covering his mouth. "Ethan, if you can't afford it, I'll pay for it." I couldn't be bothered to respond, but he grabbed my wrist. "This watch on your wrist is so new. Don't tell me it's..." He suddenly shouted, "Stolen, isn't it?" The crowd immediately stirred. "He looks decent, but he steals things." Brandon Hayes triumphantly pulled out a platinum card. "Forget it, I'll pay for it." Olivia Sterling's name was still printed on the card. A moment later, the store attendant awkwardly approached. "I'm sorry, sir, this card has been frozen." "What?" Brandon Hayes' voice suddenly rose sharply. Just then, Sophia Thompson's figure appeared at the doorway. "What's going on?" The store attendant snapped to attention. "Ms. Thompson." Brandon Hayes pointed at me and shouted, "He's stealing things." People gathered outside the store had already started taking pictures. Sophia Thompson chuckled softly. "This is my store." She walked to my side. "He's my friend. He can have anything he wants." Someone outside whistled. "Haha, serves him right?" Brandon Hayes' face turned green then white. He scrambled out the door in embarrassment, only to collide with someone. "Ms. Sterling." He recognized the person and immediately whined. "Where have you been these past few days?" He pointed at the luxury store. "Mr. Miller is with a strange woman, and he mocked me." With that, he tried to lean on Olivia Sterling. But Olivia Sterling forcefully pushed him away. Brandon Hayes staggered a few steps, and then fell heavily to the ground. "Blood. He's bleeding." A gasp erupted from the crowd. Brandon Hayes vaguely raised a hand to his forehead, his fingertips touching something warm and sticky. Olivia Sterling ignored the pained Brandon Hayes on the ground, and rushed directly to me. She was even thinner than last time, her cheekbones sharply protruding, her eyes deeply sunken. Her voice was hoarse. "Ethan, please, come home." "Home?" I sneered. "Olivia Sterling, you destroyed our home with your own hands." She tried to say something more, but Brandon Hayes clung desperately to her leg. "Miss Sterling. I'm bleeding. I'm dying. Quick, save me." I turned and left without hesitation. A few days later, hospital surveillance footage was delivered to the Thompson estate. In the footage, Brandon Hayes was seen stealthily pulling out my brother's breathing tube. I clenched my fists. In the utility shed at the Thompson estate, Olivia Sterling's assistant was tied to a chair, covered in injuries. Sophia Thompson toyed with a dagger, her voice as cold as ice. "Tell me everything Olivia Sterling made you do, every single detail, and I'll let you live." The assistant opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. He confessed everything, detail by detail. My father's car accident, my brother's accident, all of it was orchestrated by Olivia Sterling. I sat in the garden for a long time, until Sophia Thompson came and placed a candy in my palm. I instinctively flinched. Her eyes darkened. "What? Seen my way of interrogating people? Are you afraid of me?" "No." I shook my head. She suddenly took my hand. "Ethan, do you remember? Many years ago, at a formal event, a girl fell into the pond. You jumped in." I looked up at her, finding it hard to connect this beautiful woman before me with the scrawny girl from my memory. "Will you give me a chance?" She gently brushed the hair from my forehead. Seeing my silence, she said gently, "It's all right, I can wait." She continued, "I know your mind is in turmoil right now. I'll be by your side through this difficult time." 3 months later, Sophia Thompson and I got married. On the morning before the wedding, I went alone to the cemetery on the mountain. The morning dew hadn't yet dispersed. I gently wiped my parents' photos, telling them the good news that the company had regrouped and was thriving again. Olivia Sterling had someone send a photo of us from when we first met, wanting to see me one last time. I threw the photo into the fire. On the wedding day, I wore a sharp suit, looking at my transformed reflection in the mirror. At the same time, a police car was carrying Olivia Sterling and Brandon Hayes towards prison. Later, I heard that Olivia Sterling had ended her own life in prison. Outside the window, in the garden, my father's favorite camellias bloomed vibrantly. All those past hurts seemed to fade away with the wind.